Hey everybody, welcome to Cloud Cuts. So this is the show where we cut through the noise in cloud backup and we show teams how they can get more value out of their data protection strategy. So not just protecting your data from cyber resiliency, which is really important, but we're also going to tell you about how to unlock the value of the data that's actually in your backups. So I'm Lior Shai. I'm a solutions architect here with Eon, and I'm joined here by Billy.
Yeah, hi everyone. Billy Kettler. I'm on the global partner engineering team here at Google, helping partners build best-in-class products on Google Cloud.
Nice. So, thanks for joining, Billy. And I think today we want to get uh, everybody to be a little bit warmed up here. So, as an icebreaker, please let us know where are you joining us from today. I happen to be in the Garden State in Jersey City, but I'm normally in Atlanta. What about you?
And I'm based here in Austin, sitting on the 25th floor in downtown Austin, overlooking Ladyburg Lake.
Oh, nice. Let's see if anybody has some interesting places here. Oh wow. Okay, New York. Uh Anybody in somewhere exotic? I think okay. Let's see if we can see anybody in the Caribbean on the beach or something. But maybe. Oh nice. Okay. I see Boston. Well, thanks a lot for joining us. And I think we're going to be discussing today this idea of we know about backups. They're very familiar to us. We have, I guess I on my phone got some photos. Those are backed up into the cloud somewhere all the way to, enterprise workloads. So those could be servers in a data center, but they can be, virtual machines or other, more higher order managed services in the cloud. And one of the issues that we see is that a lot of times backups in the cloud aren't necessarily compliant, right, with legal requirements. They might not be, as cost effective as they should be. And in some cases, we're not really sure about whether or not the backups are actually restorable. So we're going to look into that, right? That concept of can I actually trust my backups to be there when I'm going to need them? So we're going to look today at some posture gaps that we see in cloud backups and data resiliency. We're going to introduce the concept of cloud backup posture management. Going to look at some shifts, in and trends in the industry and ways that teams are adapting to their growing cloud landscape and how they can make sure that persistent data in the cloud is going to be protected and will help our audience understand, how you can get going in making sure that your data in the cloud is better protected. Um, and if you stick around to the end, we'll talk a little bit more about how we can actually leverage backup data for to drive even further value. So AI and analytics, and how we can integrate with Google Cloud services like Vertex AI and BigQuery.
Yeah, super exciting agenda today, Lior. Why don't we transition into talking about some of the data protection challenges we're seeing with customers in the cloud?
Yeah, absolutely. And a lot of this, we've done in at Eon, we talk daily with many different cloud customers at all kind of stages that have oftentimes hundreds of Google Cloud projects or and thousands, even tens of thousands of resources in their Google Cloud organizations. And so there's several challenges that you face there when you're trying to make sure that you're actually properly protecting that data that's in your cloud environment. One of those is coverage blind spots. So we performed a survey, and we'll actually offer that the results of that report later, where 38% of our customers said that they didn't really have a dedicated backup solution. They were relying on DR features to make sure that their data is protected. Another one is this concept of manual drift. So more than half said that they had kind of manual or policies that were not fully automated that were keeping their backups set. And so that leads to a situation where, if the resources change, the actual policies that are driving those backups might not change. Of course, we've seen across the board, right? A lot of people, admit wasted spend in the cloud. And then also the restore confidence gap. So we talked about that really significant proportion of our customers that we surveyed, they said that in their existing solution, they weren't sure if they can actually trust their resource. And a big part of that is they never tested because either it was too hard or too expensive to test whether you can even, restore your resources. So lots of challenges, right, that people are finding when it comes to data protection in the cloud.
Yeah, and I think something to keep in mind too is that in the cloud specifically, it's a shared responsibility model, right? So
Hmm.
we as a cloud provider, we provide the infrastructure, the platforms, the services. We're guaranteeing things like data durability and data availability. But beyond that, it's actually up to the customer to define what their backup and DR compliance requirements are, say mandated by their board, or what their legal requirements are, say from a an insurance perspective. Many customers now have cybersecurity insurance, and what are the mandates that you have as part of that insurance policy. So we Google you know provide the primitives needed for you to really build a durable, reliable business on Google Cloud. And we also offer the primitives that Eon can leverage as an example to help build data protection, DR, and ensure that you're in compliance. So one example that would be like PD or Cloud SQL, the ability to take snapshots or export data. Um,
Absolutely. Yeah, I think that when I think about Google, Google Cloud, it's a rock solid foundation that we have customers that are innovating and rapidly building cloud applications. And I think like you could imagine, right? It's basically if you're rapidly developing software and new technologies in the cloud, you're also finding yourself with more and more data spread across more and more resources and different services. So it also brings with it a little bit of a challenge of making sure that that data is adequately protected, right? Um,
Yeah, and again, it's Google's role to ensure that we provide the services and the primitives needed to do that, right? And so, you know, uh, some examples of that, discovery API. So how do you know what VMs exist out there? So the ability to query the platform and discover all of the different resources that you're using. Once you actually do that resource discovery, how do you do data protection? I mentioned snapshots earlier, so if you think about VMs and we think about the block devices that are attached to them, offering basic functionality like snapshots, the ability to take them, to restore them, to read them, even to do indexing or differentials, and taking it a step higher on some of our higher level services like database services as an example, the ability to export those databases and import databases and index those databases are all very important features that we as a platform provider um, um, give our customers and our partners so that Eon can build data protection services on Google Cloud.
Absolutely, yeah, and I think one of the things, and exactly like you mentioned, we have certain customers that have invested a lot into this, and they've kind of, in some ways, right, figured it out. They've cracked the code. They found exactly what combination of features that they want to implement to make sure that they're, correctly backing up all their persistent data. But that's I don't want to say that it's a rarity, but it's obviously very challenging, right? To make sure you have to put in a pretty significant investment to make sure that your actual, backup posture is really mirroring your organization's requirements. And so that's where, I think Eon and Google Cloud partner together to bring customers what we call a cloud backup posture management platform. And so CBPM, what does that actually mean? So when we think about this concept of backup posture management, like CSPM or DSPM tools, right? It's about basically automating, right, the compliance process for backups and data protection. So making sure that your backups are continuously compliant, that they're remaining cost efficient, and they're reliable and restorable across Google Cloud and other hyperscalers as well. So that's where Eon can really come in, is assisting our enterprise customers with forming a holistic, organizational level policy. So not just kind of saying, hey, you have all these features available to you, go and configure them or tell your application teams to configure them. We're helping our customers say, here's our requirements, if they're legal or compliance or otherwise. And from a single pane of glass, right, a single interface, define, right, how those requirements should be implemented to protect Google Cloud workloads across the enterprise. And so we're going to take an approach. I think our Google Cloud customers will be familiar with tools like, GKE Enterprise, where you're unifying, right, the management of Kubernetes clusters, no matter where they are, and making sure that you can push out, those even compliance settings, right, across all of your clusters. So we're taking a similar approach to backup. We're saying no matter where it is, which cloud, which service in Google Cloud, which project, which region, you can ensure that if you have a backup policy set, those workloads are going to be protected properly.
Yeah, and I think it's important, right, that we understand why that matters. We've already touched on a little bit of that, right? And a
Mhm.
few reasons for that is that, again, legal reasons, board mandates on how we protect business data, right? I think it's important to realize, and I think sure everyone on the call does realize that the data and the workloads that we're protecting are critical business applications. They're what we use every day to run our business. And so at a board level, there's always mandates to ensure that we are protecting that data and we can restore that data to minimize impact for cyber resilience reasons, like we mentioned before. And I think some of the challenges with that are that as you look at moving into the cloud, or maybe you already are in the cloud, there's more of a federated IT model, right? I think one of the advantages of cloud is that we give organizations a lot of flexibility to spin up and spin down resources. And so with that, and with again the kind of federated model where different teams now take ownership of their infrastructure, it becomes way more complicated to ensure that um, your requirements, your compliance requirements, your cyber resilience, cyber insurance requirements, et cetera, are met at an organizational level. So I think you need to reframe how you think about it, and I think um, Eon helps with that.
Absolutely. Yeah. To your point there, and we'll look at some of the shifts that we've been seeing. So, and then we talked about the challenges that we've seen. One of the things that we found is how customers are adapting, right, to address the challenges associated with, backing up data in the rapidly evolving landscape that is the cloud. So, much like you mentioned, when I think about Google Cloud, I think about, rapid innovation, right, iterating on many different types of technologies and building applications across an enterprise. Well, that's great, right? But it leads to the issue of being able to actually have and maintain a centralized posture around data protection. How do you make sure that that's rolled out, right? To the many, let's say if you have thousands of different compute engine instances, thousands of different databases. Maybe you might even have critical data that's being stored as primary storage in GCS buckets that are spread out across hundreds of different Google Cloud projects and in different folders. Well, it becomes really challenging to make sure that that data is actually protected. So what we're seeing is a trend toward centralized posture automation, right? So from a centralized location, making sure that your workloads are being adequately protected.
Yeah, and
Oh, yeah.
cloud customers today are already used to that, right? Because
Mhm.
they're things like IAM and logging and monitoring are typically set up at an organization level. So there is this centralized management from a security perspective, from a logging monitoring perspective, and we also need to consider that same approach from a backup and DR perspective as well.
Absolutely, yeah. And so much like you said, right, you can kind of, you make sure that you're set and you're configuring that way when it comes to data protection, providing customers the ability to define at an organization level, basically backup policies, right, that match their actual legal and compliance requirements. And then Eon, right, a tool like Eon can make sure that those are implemented correctly across hundreds of Google Cloud projects. Where in the current state, right, it's kind of possible to in the step of translating those actual requirements into real world backup workflows is a little bit challenging, especially for our larger customers. Um, Another thing that we see, right, a way that sh teams are shifting is that they're unlocking additional ways to recover backed up data. If we think about traditional snapshots in the cloud, right? So I have a persistent disk somewhere and I want to snapshot it at some point. usually, right, if you're using that as a method to, capture a data at a particular point in time to protect it, oftentimes what we see is customers basically have those sitting on a shelf, right? If you have a snapshot sitting somewhere, there's not much that you can do with it aside from restore it. And so one of the things that we've done at Eon in partnering with Google Cloud is helping to bring our customers more value out of those snapshots. So rather than just kind of having them be these black boxes that you can't really dive into, instead, right, we're actually with Eon as a platform enabling you to search through all of your snapshots and recover files individually or directories individually or prefixes right in a object storage context. So you can go in there and search and be very, very surgical with your recoveries in the context of ransomware response, for example. It's really, really important. And we actually enable this for database data as well. So if you think about it, if you have like a Microsoft SQL or a MySQL Postgres database, whether it's on Cloud SQL um, or on um, or on GCE, what Eon actually enables you to do is query that backup. And actually, what you can do is query the backup without the need to restore it. And so when it comes to being able to actually test restores, right, that's something that where previously it might not have been economically feasible to do because it costs way too much money. But with a tool like Eon, right, you can run that query directly on your backup without the need to restore the full database. And that actually under the hood is leveraging BigQuery external tables. So really, there's this potential to integrate with the whole suite of analytics and AI tools that Google has.
Yeah, that's right. I think this ability now to unlock backup data is a super interesting use case. And if we have some time at the end, Lior, we should definitely double click on how we're seeing the industry shift and how we're using Google's kind of first party services such as Vertex and whatnot to leverage these capabilities.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, the last thing that we're seeing, the last shift that we're seeing is this concept of unifying backup posture, across clouds. So obviously, and I know we work with several, with many Google Cloud customers that they might have other workloads in other hyperscalers, and they're looking to say, I want to have a single right backup solution. I don't want to have multiple backup solutions for all of my cloud hyperscalers. And obviously, we're familiar with that ethos when it comes to GKE, right? You want the best Kubernetes implementation and the one that you like using the most, and you want to use it anywhere. Well, same thing with backup, I think, right? Why should that limit you? Why should you have to protect your data differently, based on where it's hosted? So that's another thing that's really important is to enable our Google Cloud customers to protect all of their workloads using the same single pane of glass.
Yeah, and I think we at Google Cloud kind of recognize that many customers have multi-cloud strategies, right? And if you look at our portfolio, the Google portfolio, there are some exceptions to this, but generally speaking, many of our services are kind of confined within the four walls of Google Cloud. And so, um, that's where our partners are kind of uniquely positioned to provide services that actually cross the cloud boundaries. And backup and DRs is one of those solutions where a customer isn't likely to want to have to manage multiple different backup and DR solutions across multiple different clouds. And so a partner can come in and unify that strategy and provide that single pane of glass.
Absolutely. And we're seeing, especially with the way that we see customers, leveraging Google Cloud, also using a lot of the compute services to deploy applications, as well as kind of using it as a center for AI and analytics. So there's lots of data that's there that they're interested in protecting. So having that single pane of glass has been really important for our customers, and they've appreciated our partnership to provide that on Google Cloud for sure.
Yeah. So this is all great stuff, Lior. So maybe we transition. How can customers take advantage of Eon on Google Cloud to protect their workloads?
Yeah, well, great question. I mean, obviously, we're a SaaS solution, so we're completely there's no software to install or agents or virtual appliances or anything like that. Eon can be kind of purchased off of the Google Cloud Marketplace, and really it's a cloud native implementation. So The way that it works is very similar to if you're familiar with working in the cloud, it shouldn't be anything too strange. So it's really easy to get up and running. It started with Eon, and think in a more general sense, what we can talk about is cloud backup posture management. What are some ways that you can get started, right? If it's with Eon or even, trying to improve your backup posture in Google Cloud overall, we actually have some steps here, some 3 steps that, you can take and try out, and then we want to recommend for our customers. So let's take a look at that. I think the first one that we're going to look at is about actually going and assessing your backup posture today. So understanding, where you are, where you're at today, or what's your score, let's say, when it comes to how you're protecting your data currently. Then we'll look at auditing and testing restores. And then number 3, we're going to look at automating enforcement of backup policies. Um, so to start out, assessing your backup posture, really, in order to understand, right, the scope of critical data in your environment, right, and understand if it's being properly protected, you have to know what's in your environment. So there's a lot of challenges, I think, with that really in the cloud, like, tons of different types of resources across many services. So I've found a lot of our customers have a challenge of even just assessing their cloud backup posture to start with, right?
Yeah, and I think one of the biggest challenges is data classification, right? I think the type of data informs multiple things. One, how frequently you're backing it up. Uh, Two, how long you're keeping it, and then 3, where you're backing it up. So one of the first things, as part of a posture assessment would be analyzing your data and understanding how you classify that against your varying compliance requirements. Um, and again, defining, what needs to be backed up, how often, uh, how long do you need to keep it, and where do you need to keep it? Is it in region? Do you want to put it in another region, even in another cloud potentially, depending on what your mandates are.
Yeah, and it's just a lot of work, like especially when we think about our those customers, and I know that you dealt with them too, where it's like you have just tens of thousands of resources across all these different services and things, and it becomes a thing where it's like in order to just get that information, you might have to write software, write scripts to export data, and then aggregate it yourself and generate a report. So it becomes really challenging even just to understand where you're at today when it comes to how you're protecting your data in the cloud. Um, I think one of the things that we can offer for that when it comes to with Eon is if you're running Eon, right, we're automatically discovering your Google Cloud workloads. And so from a single pane of glass kind of view, you can understand, right, even before you've backed anything up with Eon, how much data you have across which services. You can kind of filter and analyze and audit your environment, and understand where the different types of data. Obviously, we do data classification of resources. So what we're doing with Eon, even before thinking about backups and data protection, is at least giving you that insight across persistent data in your whole cloud environment and giving you the information that you actually need in order to create proper backup policies and make sure that you're set up for success there. Um, Going beyond that, number 2 we talked about is being able to audit and test restores of backups. So one thing we saw in our surveys, right, with customers is that a lot of customers are not so confident that when they go to restore that data, it's going to be available to them. And big part of that is, because of it's just not done enough, right? So either a lot of customers said that they're not testing their restores because they either don't have occasion to or don't have process to, or it's too expensive and complex to do. So I wonder, what the Google opinion is on that, Billy, around actually restoring data.
Yeah, I think we see the same thing. I think not enough people test, and I think it's also important to remember it's not just about data restoration, right? I mean, certainly there are instances where, at the most basic example would be a user accidentally deletes a file and you need to restore it. But I think when you look at it at a macro level, right? What if there's a bad actor who infiltrates your cloud environment and deletes the infrastructure as well as the data? How do you look at restoring the entire application, the entire workload? Things like reprovisioning compute, reprovisioning PD, block, reprovisioning network. and firewall rules, as well as the restoration of that data. So as part of your cloud backup posture management, you really need to assess things holistically, not even just at a data level, but at the infrastructure and services level as well. Do you have the playbooks? Do you have the automation needed to get back on your feet in a quick manner? And are you testing that on a regular basis and ensuring that it works?
Absolutely, yeah, and I think one of the really nice things about having a platform where you're bringing everything right into a single interface, right? Anything that has to do with data protection in your cloud environment, and then right, obviously recovery of that data. So with a tool like Eon, that's kind of bringing all that into one centralized interface. You can do things like use our granular restore capabilities to run test and audits of your restore. So is the actual data that you expect to be there present in a backup? You can run, for example, a granular restore of a particular table in a database once a day in a way that's economical, right? Because without needing to restore a full large database every single day, you can validate that your restore workflow is viable and is actually there without needing to take the time and the cost, right, to do full resource workflow. So even just the ability to prove that the data is available in your backups is a huge benefit to our customers. And then I think like you're talking about there, right, if you have infrastructure as code and infrastructure deployments that you want to test, being able to bring back, for example, just the skeleton of a production database without needing to restore the full database, just to validate that you're able to recover from a full, environment restore is really, really valuable when it comes to testing and auditing your restorability of your backups. Um, the last thing that we want to bring up is this idea of automation of enforcement, right? So making sure that your backup posture can keep up with rapid growth in the cloud. And I know for sure, if you've seen this, the same thing across Google Cloud customers, a lot of times they're building very rapidly and increasing the amount of applications that they have deployed. What are some ways that we can deal with that, in the cloud, is making sure that our backup keeps up with a growing cloud footprint?
Yeah, so I think one of the benefits of the cloud, right, is that it's extremely flexible and you have the ability to spin up and spin down infrastructure on an on-demand basis. So I think what you're alluding to is the complexity that comes with that when you're looking at maintaining your cloud backup posture management, right? Um, and so, traditionally, or I would say, historically, customers sometimes have done that with like tags and labels. This is still a very manual process, so they still need to figure out how to classify those different resources, and they need to make sure they build policies and actually apply those labels almost, as part of their automation or even manually during provisioning. And so I think Eon has taken kind of a different approach, right? Where we talked about some of the fundamental like APIs that Google provides. One of those is a discovery API, so the ability to discover resources that have been deployed. And I think Eon, actually, I'll pass it back to you, and you can describe how Eon's leveraging those to do resource discovery and then automatic enforcement of policies against those resources.
Absolutely, yeah, and you had it exactly right, right? We're by partnering together and using the primitives I think that Google makes available in a cloud native fashion, we're able to allow organizations that might have thousands and thousands of resources spread across their cloud environments to make sure, right, that their backups are keeping pace with those rapid changes. So for sure, that's one of the things we can help our customers kind of short circuit, right, get to automated enforcement of their backup policies by Google Cloud by adopting a tool like Eon. I'm curious. So hearing about these three, understanding your backup posture by running an assessment, auditing and testing your restores, and automating enforcement of backup policies. Let us know, in the chat. Are any of you doing one of these, two of these, or maybe all three today? Please let us know. And I think we'll want to recap this and understand. Let's see if seeing in the chat. Yeah, it looks like we have a couple of people answering in there. Um, is that really we're talking about the idea that backups exist in the cloud? We know about backups, but are we actually thinking about it holistically from a backup posture perspective? right? And so are we actually going ahead and making sure that our backups are recoverable? And we've talked about how teams are addressing these challenges and kind of and making some shifts there in the way they approach backup in the cloud. And then we discussed ways that you can both on Google Cloud and with Eon actually implement these cloud backup posture management procedures. So it's been really interesting. I think we wanted to talk a little bit about additional ways that you can actually unlock the value of your data that sits in your backups.
Yeah, so I think we alluded a little bit to this earlier, right? I think as an industry, we're seeing a shift towards driving additional value on top of your backup data. It is a second copy of all of your most valued data in the data center. Um, and what other application in the enterprise data center actually aggregates all of your data into one place? And so I think what's interesting is that as partners like Eon explore how to re-index and re-export that data, it actually unlocks interesting opportunities. One of those being around AI, and Google, I think, is in a very unique position, kind of at the forefront of AI, and one of our services, our platforms that we offer is actually Vertex, and with
Mhm.
Vertex you can build full AI pipelines. And so one example of how you can leverage Vertex with Eon would be, leveraging the data on Eon to build RAG pipelines. So indexing a single source of data that on Eon. Again, Eon is aggregating multiple data sources, so you have one large data lake, if you will, of all your enterprise data. You can index that on Eon without impacting your production workloads, and then drive value from that, such search as an example, or even on the more rudimentary level, right? Using AI and chatbots to actually converse with that data and drive insights from that data. So there's a lot of interesting possibilities with Eon and Google Cloud.
Mhm. I think like and exactly you described it, right? When you think about backing up your data, you're taking your most critical data that you have in your business and you're basically putting, you're putting a copy of it in a secure location, and you're storing it there up on a shelf. One of the really important things that we've seen with our customers that they've been responding to is the fact that we enable them to also keep that data secure and protected from, it's immutable, it's in an air-gapped environment. And so it's definitely there in the case of that it's going to be needed for business continuity, but also unlocking further value out of that. So you're already kind of paying to move that data and store it there. Let's enable customers to use Vertex AI, LLMs like Gemini and use BigQuery to actually run analyses on these data as they're sitting in their backup storage. So we're actually unlocking the value of that data by partnering with Google. And I think you pictured it really well there. If an organization is backing up, let's say 10,000 SQL databases that are running on Google Cloud, um, by actually enabling them to leverage that data without touching or going anywhere near, right, those production data sources, it's a really powerful thing when it comes to AI readiness in enterprises. So really exciting about the way that our customers have been leveraging that, Billy, for sure. Um, I think, that's all we've got for you today. What we'd want to suggest is, take a look at Eon on Google Cloud Marketplace. The other thing we'd love to offer you is if anyone is interested in trying a posture assessment. So understanding where your backup posture stands today, or if you just want a more in-depth demo or info about, Eon as a product, please feel free to get in touch with us in the chat. And then also, take a look at the links in the chat there for the cloud backup report, right? So where you can understand the data that we've got that's informed, the topics in this discussion. But yeah, with that, maybe Billy, we can move into some questions. If anyone has any in the audience, please feel free to share any questions in the chat, and we'll take a look at those. Let's see if we had one over here. So, okay. So I see one that we say is okay. Can backups support compliance and AI use cases at the same time? And can take that one. I think really if we think about this, one of the things that we hear is, enabling customers to get more insight on their data, what we just kind of talked about, that's sitting in their backups. How can you make sure that you're still adhering to all of your compliance frameworks and requirements while you're still enabling access to the data? And that's something that we see really commonly, and because that's been taken into account, I think as Eon has designed a lot of these products, is the ability to make sure that these features can either be completely turned off or opted out of, meaning no queryability of backups, or they can be limited, right, only to be used by particular users or particular API credentials and scoped to down to the individual resource level. So, for example, in that use case where we talk about, if there's 10,000 production databases, you could make sure that a particular user can only query databases with a particular cost allocation tag or from a particular Google Cloud project, etc. So you can get very, very granular with how you actually want to enable access to these features. Let's see if we have anything else here in this chat. Okay, so one thing we see here is, and maybe this is a good one for you, Billy, who should own backup posture management in an organization? Uh,
That's a good question. I don't think it's any one person. I think as an organization, you have a role to play, kind of, and again, we talked about shared responsibility earlier, but I think there is a shared responsibility even within the organization to ensure that you're adhering to those requirements. But certainly, when you look at cloud, right, typically in IT, the IT organization, the IT administrators who are um, 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 defining how your cloud is set up and architected and how different projects and folders are defined. So what your resource hierarchy looks like. I think those folks are most uniquely positioned to work on defining what cloud backup posture management means within the organization.
Absolutely, yeah. I think look at the end of the day, it's one of those things where having a tool like Eon having the capabilities that we've talked about in this call, right, is really critical because whoever it is, right, that's making those, if it's being driven by a legal team or a compliance team or even an application team that has says, because of certain risks inherent in how our application works or how we serve our customers, we need to have these backup policies across the board. And so, whoever is driving it, having a tool that enables you to implement those backup policies and actually have them take effect, no matter where your resources are in the cloud. That's really important to actually being able to have your data protected. Um, well, I think we're about time here, and so but thank you everybody. It's been really really nice having this chat with you today. Billy, it's been great talking about how we can partner together with Google Cloud to help protect our customers' data. Yeah,
Yeah, thanks for having me, Lior. This was awesome. So appreciate it.
awesome. All right, well, have a great day, everybody.